Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Liverpool keep pace with Manchester City and Chelsea winning their second game in a row. But how did they do it? What went right for them? Did they encounter any issues against Crystal Palace? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down how Liverpool beat Crystal Palace. A trip to Crystal Palace is never easy, but Liverpool got by with relative ease. How do they do it? In today's video, we're going to break down what Crystal Palace did right, how Liverpool overcame Crystal Palace's deep block, and why Crystal Palace failed to score goals. When we do break it down, we have Liverpool in a 4-3-3. They went with Mane, Salah, and Firmino up front. In midfield, they had Naby Keita, James Milner, and Gigi Wijnaldum. You look at Crystal Palace, Benteke, Zaha up front in what is a 4-4-2. Out in wider areas, they went with Schlupp and Townsend, and in midfield, Milivojevic, and they went with MacArthur. We have to look at Crystal Palace's shape initially, 4-4-2, two banks of four, dropping a bit deeper. What was interesting was that they kept it very narrow. They kept Schlupp, who was on the left, really tucked in. Townsend was tucked in as well, but he was a bit more wider, not really with that midfield bank. And why was that key? Was because they wanted Schlupp to tuck in. They wanted to limit space in between the lines. They didn't want passes to go into the Liverpool front three because the Liverpool front three didn't really occupy wider positions. Salah kept tight more so towards Sacco and Van Aanholt. Firmino was a central. Mane was stuck to Wan-Bissaka, so they didn't want balls to be played into them like what happened against West Ham, and that's where Liverpool really were able to get past them. So what happened was they kept it narrow. They knew the threat of Andy Robertson, so when he was pushing forward, Townsend was responsible there. They had Wan-Bissaka obviously pushing out as well, and if they needed Bissaka to push out, they would switch Tompkins over to Mane, but what happened there was that they wanted that, and then they kept Schlupp narrow when he did push over, so they always had somewhat of a midfield three. That meant that there was space for Alexander-Arnold to push forward and to be the threat on the counterattack, but Crystal Palace weren't worried about that. They did have Schlupp come over, but they were comfortable with letting those crosses come into the box. They trusted that Sacco and Tompkins would be able to cope with the threat of Mane, Firmino, or Salah winning aerial duels, and that's what they did. And when you look about Liverpool, they couldn't get balls into their front three. They struggled to get balls into them there. Keita, who often adopts a more advanced position on the left, wasn't able to get the ball. You often saw him drop deep and then force passes into the final third that were often misplaced. We saw Firmino drop deeper to pick up the ball, and he also wasn't able to do that. The problem with Liverpool is that Wijnaldum and Milner aren't renowned for their passing, setting the tempo, breaking lines, pulling defenders to them and beating them to often create space. So that was an issue for them, because we saw Milner drop deeper. We saw Wijnaldum adopt a deeper role, but with Benteke and Zaha over right in front of him, he was unable to really push forward, and that's not really his threat. So that's where Liverpool were struggling to create chances. How do they create chances? Well, when we look at it, a lot of it came down in transition. They had a lot of transitional attacks. When Crystal Palace tried to push forward, there was always a threat on the counterattack. We saw it in the opening minutes where just a simple ball won in midfield, you see Mane kind of pull off and then play a pass in behind Van Aanholt, who was very high. You have Salah running at Sacco, but you can't get a shot off. You think about another opportunity where it's Firmino this time evading challenges from midfield and then breaking towards the back four, and you have Mane kind of pushing in behind, but he can't get his pass to connect with him. There was another opportunity where Keita, when Crystal Palace push a bit higher and try to win the ball as Liverpool play out of the back, Keita wins the ball, pushes forward, no one presses him, and then he's able to clip the ball over the top for Mo Salah. Mo Salah brings it down but pokes his effort over the net. That was the issue with Liverpool. On the counterattack, obviously there was space for them to exploit, but when you look at it as a whole, Palace weren't really looking to press very high or close down markers. They were occupying spaces, so they were ensuring that Liverpool couldn't break through them, and it involved movement. It involved the front three to kind of drift out. We saw Mane push out to the left on a few occasions. There was one time where he pushed out to the left. Townsend doesn't want to track Robertson, but Mane knows that Robertson is going to play on the overlap. He does play on the overlap, and what happens is that his cross is poor, but it was a sign of intent. It was something different. That's where Liverpool found some joy. We saw Mane try to run at Wan-Bissaka. There was one time where he picked up the ball from deep, ran past Townsend, initially got past Bissaka. Bissaka tracked him well and made a vital tackle, and that was another opportunity for them. There was one time where the ball was switched out wide to Firmino, who adopted that space, or to Arnold, who adopted that space. And what happens is that it's Firmino just getting across Milojevic. The pass comes in, he instantly drags the marker out, flicks it to Salah. Salah's unable to get a shot off. It's blocked, but it falls to Keita, who wins a corner kick. There just needs to be some varied movement in this Liverpool attack. When they did vary their movement, they created a bit of half chances. Yes, their transitional threat was the key in the first half. And as we saw when they won the penalty, again, it's just Firmino drifting out right. And yes, you would think, he drifted out wide to the right. What do you get there? But what happens is that him drifting out wide right forces markers towards him. It allows Salah to get into a 1v1 with his back to goal against Sakho. Sakho doesn't really want to deal with that threat. And it's weird because Tompkins is near him. He ends up beating him, but when he tries to get the shot off, Sakho fouls him. It is a penalty. Liverpool converted. And then in the second half, what happens is that obviously there needs to be space created, and Liverpool were able to exploit that on the counterattack. On several occasions, they broke in behind, and 3 of them led to goal-scoring opportunities. There's one where Robertson is able to break after Crystal Palace chance, and it leads to a 2v2 break. He plays in Salah, who breaks free, but is unable to successfully round Wayne Hennessy. He's pulled out left, but he ends up still pulling it back for Naby Keita, who breaks in and then fires a shot wide of the net. You think about how Wan-Bissaka's sent off. Well, that's a bunch of errors that were created. But when we look at it as a whole, and we have Crystal Palace a bit forward, what happens is that on their set pieces, they have Wan-Bissaka and Van Aanholt sitting as the deepest players, obviously possibly for their pace, and that they don't really offer a threat in the box. So they're there. Obviously, Liverpool are clear their lines, and the ball is sent back in by Bissaka. But initially what you have here is you have Salah up front. They have 2 markers there. But what happens is that you have Firmino and Mane ready to break on the counter. Townsend and Schlupp are initially on them at the edge of the box, but as Wan-Bissaka plays his ball in, Schlupp and Townsend push a bit forward. When they push a bit forward, they're anticipating or assuming that Crystal Palace are going to get the ball back in, but Liverpool clear their lines again. Henderson nods it beyond them. Firmino slides it, because for now Firmino and Salah are free. Slides it into Salah. He breaks free. Bissaka does foul him. And then when they score the second goal, we look at it and what stems from it. Obviously, Crystal Palace are going for it, but it's just Meyer and Van Aanholt who are holding the lines, and then you have 3 players in Mane, Salah, and Firmino free. Eventually, Mane set free. He runs past his marker, and Van Aanholt pushes him off, and then he's able to round the keeper and tap his shot into the net. When we look at what Crystal Palace did, it's just the fact that they don't really have much up front. You look at it as a whole, they have Benteke, who didn't really do a good job of holding up the ball. There was only one instance where he did look like a threat, and when he was holding it up well, and that didn't amount to nothing. He ended up dragging 2 defenders wide, and then he found Townsend, who then found Schlupp, and then Schlupp fired a shot wide. But really, when you look at it as a whole, Zaha's often trying to beat markers by himself. Schlupp was doing a defensive job. Benteke wasn't offering much. There's another opportunity where Townsend hits the crossbar, but that stems from a poor Naby Keita effort. They found a lot of joy down the left-hand side. They found it through Zaha. They found it through Bissaka on the other side as well. We look at their best chances, and it's just about not getting your runs right. We look at when Bissaka's played in and he beats Mane, he flicks it over him, he plays the ball across the box. We have Benteke moving only towards the front post. No one else is attacking it. That chance is squandered. We look at another opportunity more so in the second half when the game was really open. Liverpool were dropping more into a narrow 4-5-1. And what happens here is that when they do drop into that 4-5-1, they end up leaving a lot of space out in wide areas. We have Zaha with the ball out on the left. What happens is Schlupp makes the run in behind Arnold. And what happens there is that he's looking to play the ball through the box again. We have runners making the run to the near post in Benteke. The one time they did get it right was towards the end, and it's Zaha running at Arnold, cuts out wide. Max Meyer, who comes on as a sub, breaks across, but he's unable to guide his effort on goal. But when we look at the game as a whole, Palace's shape was very good. They were very narrow. They ensured that there was no supply line into the Liverpool front line, and they stopped them there. But what happens is that when they had to push forward or when they were caught in transition, Liverpool found space in behind. We look at the opportunities. Yes, Sacco made a mistake, but in the second half as well, they were breaking on the counterattack. It led to Salah almost scoring. It led to Wan-Bissaka being sent off, and then it led to Mane finishing off the game. Whereas for Crystal Palace, not getting enough from Benteke, Zaha's threat individually is very good, and it will help them beat sides in the mid-table lower half. But against a side like Liverpool, who are looking to contend for the title, they need to do better, and they have that issue up front going forward. But if they could defend like they did today and limit mistakes, they could win some points off of the bigger teams. But for Liverpool, job done, move forward, and teams are still having difficulty stopping the front three from scoring goals. But let me know what you guys think. Is Liverpool the real deal this season? What can we get from Crystal Palace? Can they finish in the top half? And for Liverpool, do they have the right midfield with Keita, Milner, and Wijnaldum? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.